how I lost my job, my home, and my phone in one night, and how it somehow saved my life. I was 22, and I honestly thought life couldn't hit any lower. I worked at this dull office job where every morning smelled like burnt coffee, and every evening ended with the same dry, "have a good one." Everyone hated it there, but we all pretended it was fine, that this was just how adult life worked. I had a girlfriend back then who once told me, "You'll never change until life throws you off the rails." I laughed at that. I thought I was solid, unshakable, but she was right. I just didn't know it yet. 2 weeks later, I got laid off. Company restructuring, they said. That same evening, my landlord texted me that he was raising the rent by 40%. I remember sitting there on the floor, surrounded by a few half-packed boxes, thinking, is this some cosmic joke? I figured I'd crash with friends for a while. You know, a few days here, a week there. But one was on vacation, another said, "Sorry, my sister's staying over," and a third just didn't reply. So there I was, with 2 duffel bags, standing outside the train station, convincing myself this was temporary. One night in a cafe, then a 24-hour food joint, then the waiting room at the station. I'd tell myself, just a few more days. But those days started to blend into each other. I barely slept. 3 hours here, 2 there. I was living off cheap pastries and instant coffee, applying for jobs from my phone, trying to pretend I still had control. And then, one night at Kyiv Passagiersky station, I was sitting by a wall outlet charging my phone, scrolling through job listings, when a guy sat next to me. He looked rough, but not dangerous. He smirked and said, "You look like someone who's looking for trouble." I laughed. "Yeah, probably." He grinned, stood up, patted me on the shoulder, and walked away. 5 minutes later, I realized my phone was gone. Just gone. I ran after him, but he'd disappeared into the crowd. I went to the police, filled out a report. They told me they'd look into it, but I knew that meant nothing. So there I was. No phone, no money. My card was tied to that phone. No place to sleep. I sat on a bench outside, freezing, staring at nothing, and then something just broke in me. I started laughing, loudly. Like full-on hysterical laughter that made people around me look over. Because when everything falls apart at once, it stops feeling tragic. It starts to feel absurd. That's when an old man walked up to me. He had a bottle of Zhivchik soda in one hand and a torn jacket that looked older than me. He said, "Cold night, son. Come sit with us by the trash bins. It's warmer there." And I went. Because what else was I going to do? There were a few of them, a small group of homeless people sitting around a rusty barrel fire. They gave me a spot near the flames. One guy was talking about how he used to be a truck driver. Another was singing softly under his breath. The old man's name was Mikola. He told me he'd once owned a small business, had a family, a car, then started drinking, lost everything. His voice wasn't bitter, it was tired, but peaceful. At one point he looked at me and said, "You think you've fallen. But maybe you just got off at a new station. The only question is, will you wait for another train, or will you stand on the tracks?" I didn't really get it at first, but the words stuck in my head. The next morning, I asked him if he knew any shelters or volunteer places. He walked me to this small local charity that helped people without homes. Tea, warm food, blankets. I didn't exactly fit in there. I was still wearing clean jeans, still had my backpack. Thank God I'd left my laptop in storage that night. But they helped me anyway. Found me some temp jobs, unloading trucks, washing dishes, mopping warehouse floors. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was doing something. It wasn't glamorous, but it was forward. After 2 weeks, I managed to buy a beat-up old flip phone just to have a number again. Then I started applying for jobs in my field again. Most interviews went nowhere. Polite smiles. "We'll call you." But then a small design studio offered me a shot. Not as a designer, just as an office manager. I didn't care. It was a lifeline. I told them straight up, "I'm not the perfect candidate, but I know how to work." They hired me. That first paycheck felt unreal. I rented a tiny room, barely big enough for a bed and desk. But it was mine. I bought a used smartphone. I slept properly for the first time in months. A few weeks later, I saw Mikola again, the same old man sitting near the metro with a paper cup of tea. I ran over, handed him a hot coffee and some food. He recognized me instantly and smiled. See? I told you. You just got off at a new station. Then he told me something that froze me to the bone. That same night when I'd lost my phone and ended up sitting with him by the fire, there'd been a shooting near the train station. Random A robbery gone wrong. A few people were caught in it, right in the area I'd been sitting before. If I hadn't gone with him, I might have been one of them. I didn't even know what to say. I just sat there, looking at him, realizing that this random man, someone most people wouldn't even glance at, had literally saved my life. It's been 3 years since then. I've got a stable job now, a small apartment, still rented, but it feels like home. And every few weeks I stop by that same volunteer place. I bring tea, blankets, talk to the people there. Sometimes I see that same look in someone's eyes, that hollow, lost expression. And I always say what Mikola told me. Maybe you just got off at a new station. I think about that night a lot. How everything that could have gone wrong did. And yet it led me exactly where I needed to be. Sometimes life throws you off the rails not to destroy you, but to make you start over. To strip away everything fake until all that's left is what's real, and then give you the choice to rebuild. And now, when I look back, I don't see that night as the end. It was the beginning of the first real chapter of my life.